Hello, welcome back. So now we'll be creating Ansible setup here in this video. So we have one controller and three Ansible client nodes, and SSH communication would be happening via Ansible controller to Ansible client, and that would happen via S3 bucket. Like controller SSH key will be pushed to this bucket, this opening, so this bucket. So you push to this bucket, and from here the client will pull the SSH key, and that's how communication would happen from controller to client. So that's how it is. We'll be creating all the SSH using Terraform, and this SSH connectivity and all these are I'm using user data for the node, and in user data I'll be writing shell script, and using that shell script all these things will be done. This is completely automation which we are implementing. Let's implement. Now let's create a Terraform resource. First of all, provide a resource. Terraform required version. What is the version of Terraform I have in my account? So 1.6.6, right? So yeah, so I don't want like more than I want to be less than or equal to 1.6.6. It will fail if it is more than 1.6.6. Required provider AWS. Source would be HashiCorp. Okay, now this is done, right? So now we have to configure a region. Provider AWS region. Let's keep it for now. We have not variabilized, right? Not using any variable for now. So when we use variable, we'll put it to variables. And profile, let's use the default one which I have already configured in my account. I'm not specifying any profile. So secret key and access key, it is already configured in my account. So that's why I'm using default. So I'm asking Terraform to use default one which is already available. Dot credentials, right? Dot AWS credentials file. That file, whatever it is there in that, it will use it. Now provider file is completed. Now let's create VPC. Resource AWS VPC. Ansible VPC. Let's name Ansible VPC. Cider block. Cider block. Let's use 10.21.0.0/16. Can we use 24 for VPC? No, we can't use 24 for VPC. We have to use /16 itself. Tags. Let's name our VPC. Ansible VPC. Tags equal to, right? So once this is done, let's create internet gateway as well. Let's give name as Ansible public 𝐦𝐴W. And what is the VPC ID? Dot ID we have to specify because it references using ID. A unique ID which gets created when we create a resource in AWS, right? So it references that ID. Let's take a tag. Let's add tag also. Ansible public 𝐦𝐴W. Yeah, this is also completed. Once this is completed, let's create a public subnet. I'm creating in public subnet. You can try to create in private subnet and try to add NAT gateway to your public subnet, private subnet. That is also okay. You can do it, but I'm creating in public subnet for now. Subnet name Ansible public subnet 1 VPC ID. Header block 10. What did we give? 10 21 0 0 slash 24. We will give 1 and availability zone. Let's give AP South 1. Map public IP on launch. Yeah, true. You have to give true. Let's add tag also for this. Ansible public subnet 1. Subnet. Let's create route table for our subnet. Public route table. But here resource AWS route table Ansible public RT. That's the name we want to give. VPC ID AWS VPC ID. Let's add tags as well. And let's create AWS route table ID would be AWS destination ID, destination header block would be, we'll give 000 across the internet. and add gateway ID. Once this is done, let's associate these route tables. Subnet ID. Let's give subnet ID. Subnet ID. This is subnet ID. Dot ID we have to give because it references using the unique ID. Route table ID. AWS. Dot ID. Once this is done, our route table also is completed. Now let's create. Let's fetch the IAM role from the dashboard. Already created IAM role, so let's check that. Already created IAM role, so IAM role is here. This role I am attaching it to EC2 instances, wherein using this role bucket policy. Yeah, I am giving permission to the specific bucket. So this specific bucket I am giving permission. All permissions I am giving. Get, put, list, everything I am giving at the bucket level. So I'm giving it to EC2 instance. I'll be attaching this role to EC2 instance. So for that I'm creating a role. Data, AWS, IAM, instance, profile. Internal name we can give anything. Bucket, policy I'm giving. I'm fetching this role from my account and attaching it to EC2 instance. So when I create instance, I'll attach it. But for now, I've written code for fetching the policy. Let's create security group for now. We'll only allow 22 port. So AWS security group and also ATN 443 port. SSH web traffic SG. That's the name we want to give. Name, let me give the name. Name is here. Description. Allow SSH http TPS. What is the VPC? VPC ID AWS VPC .id. And let's add ingress rules also now. Description. Allow SSH. From port 22 to port 22, protocol TCP cider block. Anyway, from the internet, can give a specific ICMP IP also to get it from your local local network. You can give that IP also /32. You can give, and you can give that IP also. But I'm giving for across the internet. I'm giving access. So yeah. So let's add one more rule. Let's add one more rule also. Let's add egress now. From port 0 to port 0, protocol -1 to allow all from outbound insider block. Anywhere from the internet. Now this is completed. After this, so after this, let's create instances now. Resource AWS instance. Ansible controller AMI. I'm using one AMI which I have. Using this AMI which I have. Instance type T2 medium. T2 micro is very slow, so I'm using T2 medium. For testing purpose, you can use as per your, you can use T2 micro as well. Key name, I have one key. testing dev 1 is the key, I guess. Testing dev 1 only. Let me check if it is the key. A testing dev 1 key. I have the key. This is the key I've used. And after that, subnet name, subnet ID, AWS subnet dot ID, IAM instance profile. We created, right? So data AWS dot name. It references using name. VPC security group. Group IDs. Let's give IDs. AWS security. It used, right? So ID. User data. I'll be creating user data for this file name. Let's give file name as well. User script controller .sh. I'll be attaching it to this instance, this shell file. We're attaching it to this instance. I'll be creating that in this video. I'll be creating that. I said tag as well. Tags are important because we'll be fetching EC2 instance, public IP and private IPs, right? So tags are important for naming purpose. Becomes important when we are naming because it tries to describe the EC2 instance and try to fetch the public IP or private IP. So it becomes important. Let's create client now. Let's copy the same resources. Let's create client now. Count would be want 3, right? Count would be 3. Same, yeah. So this would be script, Ansible controller, Ansible script client. And tag would change a bit for tag Ansible client. We would use count index. Yeah, so our resources are also completed, but I want a delay of 90 seconds before Ansible clients get created. To add a delay, let's create a null resource time sleep wait for clients. Depends on AWS instance Ansible controller. Yeah, so it will okay now. Okay, here we have to create duration also. Create duration 90 seconds. This will create 90 seconds of duration before Ansible client is created. We have to add depend here also. For this we have to add depend. It should depend on this resource, right? So let's add that. Depends on time, sleep, wait for clients. Yeah, that's all. So it will create first. It will create Ansible controller, and it will wait for 90 seconds. And after 90 seconds, we are creating Ansible client. The reason we are doing this because as SSH key once it is pushed, it would require 90 seconds for it to 90 seconds for the script to run, around 90 seconds for the script to run. I'll tell you why we are taking 90 seconds for all these things. I'll when we write user script, we'll understand that. Let's create variables now. Instance AMI type. Description, the image ID to be used. Type string. Default would be, what is the image ID? Let's variable for this. Let's use variable for this. Now let's write variable for type. Instance type. Controller. Description and all will be same. Instance type to be used. Let's check. Let's use T2 medium. Let's create a variable for this. Let's create a variable for client as well. Let's create variable for region as well. Variable region. Description. The region used. Type string. Default would be AP South 1. Now let's change the region. Let's change the variable here. Why this is coming like this? Region spelling was wrong actually. So now let's create output file as well. Once this is done, let's create an output file as well. Region is done. Now let's create output file. We want public IPs of instances, right? Controller public IP description. The Ansible controller instance public IP. Value AWS instance controller dot public IP. Let's take client and client also. Ansible client public IP. Little bit change we have to do here. Ansible client all nodes public IP. Our setup is completed now. Now we have to create user data. Let's create user data for client first because that is easy. Sudo su. Let's create a user. First we will create a user. Let's write in a comment. user ssh directory. Ssh path key path user ssh directory authorized keys. We have created variables for ssh key, that path and .sh folder. It should be there, right? So we have created variable for that. So let's check if user exists. Like before we create, let's check if user exists. Let's remove these gaps. Before we create user, let's check if user exists. If id username dev null, then echo username already exists. Exit code 1 and F5. We're checking if user already exists. So if user is already exists, it will display like user exists. If user doesn't exist, then create a user. So let's create a user. It will give prompt for username, prompt for email ID and all that. We'll have to escape all those things. So how do we do that? Add user, disable password. Do not have any password for the user. GECOS. We are escaping many other things which by default it asks when user is created. Username. Once this is done, let's apt get install AWS CLI. Let's install AWS CLI. Let's copy and fetch SSH key, public key from S3 bucket. What is it? Let's for that command. There's a command for that. Let's use that command. It's a simple command. Before this, let's create a directory. User SSH directory and change permission for that. If not exist, let's copy SSH key to authorized keys file, fetch and copy SSH public key from S3 AWS S3. There is a command S3 cp ARN of the bucket my key server.pub. This is the file which is there in the bucket. To where to this path. Or change the permission of that chmod. Change permission. Change ownership also. Let's add Ansible user into sudo group. So it has permission, sudo permission it has. Let's use sudo t. Let's use t command for that. Adding t etc. We'll try to add it. Sudoers dot t Ansible user. Yeah, so this is the complete file for client. So we'll create controller also. Controller will be little bit longer, but it will be like this only. There are some commands it will push to S3 bucket. SH key will be pushed to S3 bucket. So it will be a little bit longer script. But this script I'm attaching it to client. Yeah, I'm attaching it to client. So we'll write another script for controller. Let's create user controller. User script controller. Sudo su. Same steps, username. Same steps almost. Add Ansible to super group. Ansible user, sorry. After this, let's switch to user from root. And try to install AWS CLI. Let's install Ansible as well. This is control machine, so we need Ansible in this. So let's install Ansible as well. You can follow the documentation of Ansible installation from official documentation. I already have it, so let's install Ansible. After that, let's create these directories. Let's generate SSH key. If file not equal to I have the command with me. We'll try to create. It will try to generate SSH key, and after that we'll push it to change the ownership. We'll push it to S3 bucket using this command. This command will push to S3 bucket. So let's see. It's copy in local server as well. Self SSH also should happen. For that, we are copying into authorized keys. After that, let's cd change directory. And logging it till this step into a file main data log. I've already pushed into GitHub Repo, so we'll clone the repo and then we'll try to add it into inventory file. We'll clone the repo. This is the repository. Clone the repo and then we'll try to set the inventory and then update the inventory file. What is the name I gave? Inventories and inventory.ini, right? So let's check the name. Let's create a log for the upcoming commands. Export AWS region. It will log with dates, right? With date, I want it to get logged with date. I have with me, so let's copy it. Log each and every command into this log file, Ansible script.log. Let's create a function to update the entries. This will update into inventory file, so I'm writing it. Once this is done, log for updating. Let's log it. Now this will ensure section header exists in our inventory file. So header, as I said, header is this thing. Now this command will remove existing entry if it exists. It will remove the section, and this command will add the I have the complete command scripts and I have, so I'm copying that complete script, pasting it here. So what it is doing is actually, so it will try to update the entry and update the section. If it is not there, it will try to add it, and then it will try to check if the inventory file is there, inventory.ini file is there, and yeah, so it will try to fetch the controller IP using this public IP using this command into a variable, and then if it is able to fetch, it will fetch it, and it will try to store it in a variable and try to update in inventory file. So similarly, I have given 90 seconds as pause for before creating before Ansible client IPs to be fetched, because I've given pause in that Terraform creation instance creation file also, right? So I've given same pause. What will happen is, like, all instances will be created once, and then the script, it will run on user script, it will run on controller, right? So it will try to fetch client IPs, and it will not find. That's why it will fail. So it will fail to fetch the client IPs because this is the command. This is the command. So I've also given retrying also again, retry again. So this I've retried, like sometime what happens is instance is created along with controllers, and by that time the client is not created. So what would happen is, it will not fetch the IP of client IP. So for that I've given retry before failing, right? It will again try to fetch the client IP. Then it will try to update the inventory, and then that's how this whole script will work. Inventory will be updated. First it will try to push S3 bucket, push SH key to S3 bucket, and then try to pull it to self, and then try to clone repository, and this is the inventory path which I am giving, and logs will also come, and after that it will check the headers. If headers are not found, it will create headers, and it will try to fetch the public IP of controller and client using this command, controller and client, and these are the client names, right? These are the client names which I gave in Terraform while creation of the instances. Yeah, that's all. So we'll try to create the resources now. We've initialized Terraform and we have planned the Terraform, and then see some resources are getting created. How many resources are getting created? It will give how many resources it is going to create. It will give. So we'll apply now and see if everything is getting created. Around 12 resources will be created. 12 resources. So let's see if it is getting created or not. Our user data should work fine. Like fetching the IPs and fetching the S3 bucket SH key, that should work fine. Let's see if it works fine. is creating controller. Now it will pause for 90 seconds before creating clients. Is creating. Yeah, everything is created now. Let's get into the system and let's try to see if everything is working fine. We have to check the logs. Let's get to the user, Ansible user. It is a part of the script. It might have created it. Let's see if logs are getting created. Yeah, logs are getting created. It will take 90 seconds. Like we have given pause, right? It will take 90 seconds for it to fetch client IPs. Anyway, we have already tailed it, so that's not an issue. You wait for 90 seconds before it fetches client IPs. So let's wait for 90 seconds and then let's see. It is fetching client IPs now. It has updated also. Let's see if it has updated. It has updated. Now see what is there in controller. It will update in controller. What is required in client, it will update in client. So let's see if SSH is happening. If SSH is happening, then our setup is completed. We have ping.yaml here, which I have created to ping all the servers. So this is the playbook, a small playbook which will run on across all servers and try to ping. Let's see if it pings. This is the command which I will run. Host key checking no I'll give because it will not ask. I don't want host key checking to happen. This path I have to give. let's move this to home directory, Ansible user, and try to run from there. Let's see if it is running fine. Yeah, SSH connectivity is happening. So our setup is completed. So from controller to clients, SSH connectivity is there. So we have copied SSH key from S3 bucket. So controller has pushed the SSH key to S3 bucket, and client has copied the SSH key correctly, and it has copied the SSH key, and then we are able to SSH through client. Through client we are able to SSH through controller we are able to SSH to the client, right? So our setup is completed. So this is how we do Ansible setup. So one controller and then remaining all our client, and on client we can deploy whatever we require, like Nginx we can deploy Apache, or any other application we can deploy using host. We can specify host and we can deploy. So that's how we do it. So Kubernetes cluster also we can deploy using this, but this is not the Kubernetes related video. So it's a Ansible setup video. So I wanted to show you how Ansible setup is working using Terraform. We have created the resources, and we have used GitHub. I pushed the code to GitHub, and you can pull it from GitHub. It will work fine for you as well. So that's all. Be careful. Thank you to delete the resources after your lab after the test is completed. So it's better you delete the resources. I'm deleting it. So you also delete it, because I've used T2 medium, right? If it is free also, it will charge you if you use T2 medium. So I would suggest you to delete the resources once the lab is done, once the test is done for you. Thank you.